The Galactic Council met inside a colossal chamber that floated quietly in the deep darkness of space. It was an ancient structure, built long before most of the younger species had even learned to control fire. Every cycle, the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy sent their highest leaders to this place, a structure the size of a moon, glowing faintly with blue and gold lights that never dimmed. The chamber inside was circular, like a massive arena, with rows of floating seats circling a hollow center. Each seat belonged to a civilization that had proven its strength, intelligence, or survival through centuries of struggle. Some were shaped like thrones of fire, others like floating crystals or nests of light. But there was one seat deep black, cold and untouched, that never changed. No matter how many years passed, no matter how many species came and went, it stood in silence at the farthest edge of the circle, untouched by time, surrounded by a small glow of white starlight. The elders of the council knew which world it belonged to. The younger races did not. On this particular cycle, a new species had been allowed to attend for the first time. They called themselves the Valeri, tall and thin beings with bright skin and curious eyes. Their technology was impressive, their logic sharp, and they had just achieved interstellar travel across 4 systems. Earning a temporary place in the council was a rare honor, and the Valeri arrived with pride. But as soon as they entered the chamber and took their place, one of their ambassadors noticed the empty seat. With innocent curiosity, he pointed toward it and asked, "Who sits there?" The chamber went silent. Even the lights in the walls seemed to dim for a moment. One of the elder species, a being of pure energy called Solarith, slowly turned and spoke, its voice crackling like thunder. "That seat belongs to a world no one speaks of." The Valeri ambassador tilted his head. "Why? Was it destroyed?" Another voice, this one from a creature that looked like living stone, responded with only 3 words, "Worse than destroyed." A cold silence followed. The Valeri were confused. To them, the council was about knowledge and progress. Secrets had no place in such a gathering. But no matter how many questions they asked, no one answered. Some whispered among themselves. Others looked away. A few even left the chamber, unwilling to sit so close to the seat. Later, during a private meeting, the youngest of the Valeri researchers asked their elder why the council seemed afraid. The elder, who had studied the archives of many worlds, quietly explained that the seat belonged to Earth, a planet from the edge of a forgotten spiral arm, orbiting an average star. "Humans once came here," he said, voice low. "But they did not stay." The Valeri searched through the official records of the council, trying to find any trace of this mysterious world. Most files were restricted, blacked out, or erased completely. What few mentions remained spoke of a species that arrived suddenly, accepted the invitation to join, and attended a single meeting. Then, without warning, they left. They said nothing. They took no resources, made no alliances, and asked for no favors. They simply walked away, leaving their seat behind. But it was not abandoned. The council decided it would never be given to another. It would remain Earth's seat in case they ever returned. And so it stood, untouched, for centuries. The mystery of it grew with each passing cycle. Rumors began to spread, whispers that humanity hadn't just left, but left because of something. Some believed Earth had seen a truth about the council that terrified them. Others believed humans had discovered something far beyond what the council could imagine. The most frightening theory, however, was simple. Humans did not return because they chose not to. Among the council, some feared Earth's silence more than any known weapon. The idea that a species could walk away from the most powerful gathering in the galaxy without fear or interest disturbed them. Power-hungry species could be predicted. Enemies could be studied. But those who didn't want power, who didn't need it, were unpredictable. Dangerous in ways others couldn't understand. As the Valeri continued their research, they found older civilizations who refused to speak of Earth at all. One archivist even broke down, shaking, and whispered, "They are still watching." The words made no sense. Earth had been silent for hundreds of years. No signals. No ships. No probes. Nothing. Yet the fear remained. The empty seat was not just a symbol of mystery. It had become a silent warning. One day, the Valari ambassador stood before the entire chamber again. He looked at the black seat and raised his voice. We should not fear an empty chair. If Earth is gone, let us learn from its story. The moment he finished speaking, every other species turned toward him in horror. Not anger, fear. The lights flickered. A low hum began to rise, deep in the floor of the chamber. For the first time in living memory, the black seat pulsed once with a soft white glow. Just once. Then all returned to silence. The Valari froze. So did everyone else. No one knew what it meant. But it was enough. The Valari apologized quickly. They did not speak of Earth again. The Council resumed its duties in the cycles that followed, passing laws, resolving conflicts, and managing the balance of power across thousands of systems. But from that day on, a new rule was quietly added to the archives. No species shall speak of Earth's seat without permission from the elders. And so the seat remained cold, silent, and untouched. But now, even the Valari understood why it wasn't just the mystery of Earth that scared them. It was the possibility that humanity had not vanished, but had simply chosen to observe from the shadows. Watching, judging, waiting. And if that glow meant anything at all, then Earth had heard them. And Earth never forgets. Deep within the central databank of the galactic core, where stars danced like dust and time felt slower, there was a section of the system that no one accessed, a silent, hidden folder buried beneath layers of firewalls and encryption, so complex, even the machines called it cursed. Most civilizations didn't even know it existed. The few that did only whispered of it during secret conversations. They called it the Human Archive. The Council of Stars never confirmed its presence, and it was never discussed in open sessions. But it was real. Locked behind 10,000 barriers and known only to the oldest and wisest of species, the archive was a digital grave sealed by ancient codes. Not because it was dangerous, but because no one truly understood it. The last time it was opened, 300 years ago, a peaceful AI civilization suffered a mass shutdown within seconds of accessing it. The machines had described visions, images, sounds, and words they couldn't interpret. Some called it a virus. Others believed it was a test. But the AI themselves simply said one phrase before going silent. Among the Valari researchers, the youngest archivist, Ralos, had always been fascinated by the mystery of Earth. After their unexpected moment in the council chamber, when Earth's seat glowed faintly in response to a careless comment, Ralos had spent every moment researching humanity. He searched through half-erased records, decoded fragments of old council debates, and even dared to question the stone-skinned elders who'd once dealt with Earth face to face. Most told him to stop. Do not wake what sleeps, one warned. But curiosity was a flame that only grew stronger the more others tried to put it out. When Ralos discovered a hidden terminal locked behind a decaying wall in the old galactic library, he didn't hesitate. The screen was blank, cold, and ancient. It didn't even speak the current galactic codes. But as he brushed his fingers across the surface, the machine whispered a single word, human. The moment the word echoed in the room, lights flickered. The wall behind him groaned, and the screen came alive. Strange symbols lit up Earth languages long forgotten. Some were sharp, others curved and flowing, all of them different, yet somehow organized. Ralos stared in awe as the terminal displayed a prompt. It read, "Accessing Human Archive. Are you sure?" He hesitated. Every warning flashed in his mind. The council would exile him for this. Worse, if the rumors were true, it could kill him. But the truth was too close to abandon. With a trembling hand, he accepted. Instantly, the room darkened. The air grew heavy. Then came the flood. The archive opened like a storm, pouring images, voices, emotions, and thoughts into the terminal. Ralos saw flashes of Earth's past cities rising, wars burning, peace returning, and stars being reached. He saw humans arguing, laughing, fighting, building, destroying, and healing. But none of it was random. The archive didn't show everything. It showed what mattered. Each moment carried weight. A mother holding her child during a war. An astronaut whispering goodbye before leaping into the unknown. A scientist crying after discovering faster than light travel. These weren't just memories, they were living echoes, perfectly preserved. Rallos realized the archive wasn't a collection of data. It was a living mind. The more he watched, the more he understood why others feared it. Humanity had stored not just their history, but how they thought. Their logic, their pain, their madness, their courage, it was all in the archive. Entire wars could be simulated based on their patterns. New ideas could be born from their thoughts. The archive wasn't a weapon, but it could make weapons. It wasn't alive, but it could teach life how to think like humans. And for the rest of the galaxy, that was more terrifying than any fleet or bomb. Because humans weren't predictable. They were reckless and brilliant, cruel and kind, selfish and heroic. And they remembered everything. Asc the archive fed more information. Rallos stumbled across something even stranger. A section titled, "They Will Come Back When It's Time." Inside were hundreds of recorded plans. Not for war, but for return. Humanity hadn't vanished. They had simply stopped talking. They were watching from the shadows, waiting for the galaxy to reach a point where they were needed. The archive monitored species across galaxies, tracking progress, decisions, and threats. When it decided the time had come, Earth would awaken. Not with ships, but with understanding. Rallos saw maps, hidden relay points, and coded messages left on abandoned planets. Earth had planted breadcrumbs across space, waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to follow them. It wasn't a test. It was a warning. Suddenly, the terminal shut down. The screen turned black, and the room returned to silence. A faint whisper echoed from the walls, just one word, but it chilled him to the core, soon. Rallos backed away slowly, heart pounding, mind spinning. He hadn't just discovered history, he had awakened something ancient. The human archive wasn't meant to be read. It was meant to watch. He looked over his shoulder, expecting someone or something to be standing there. But the room was empty. Still, he felt like he was no longer alone. The whisper had not come from the machine. It had come from them. When Rallos returned to the Valari homeworld, he was changed. He spoke little, ate less, and spent long hours staring at the stars. He had copied nothing. The archive didn't allow it. Everything he had seen was burned into his memory, and he knew better than to share it all. But one thing was certain, the galaxy was not ready for Earth's return. And worse, Earth had already decided that day was coming soon. The Council felt the change too. Elder species grew silent. New threats rose and then vanished without explanation. A few empires that had begun aggressive expansion suddenly collapsed overnight, leaders missing, fleets gone. Some said Earth was already moving. Others said the archive had judged them. No one knew the truth. But one night, as Rallos stood beneath the twin moons of his planet, a strange object entered the sky. It moved slowly, silently, not like any known ship. It didn't land. It didn't speak. It simply hovered above the atmosphere, its shape shifting, almost like a shadow wearing armor. And then, just as silently, it disappeared into the stars. The next day, Rallos found a single symbol burned into the sand near the capital, a circle with a single line through it. The same symbol from the archive. No message. No sound. Just a symbol. And that was enough. The human archive had awakened, and Earth was listening. The stars never forget. In the endless darkness between galaxies, where even light takes millions of years to arrive, there are places untouched by time, regions where silence is older than civilizations and space itself seems to hold its breath. One such place, a stretch of emptiness beyond the known edge of the galactic map. Nothing moved there. No planets, no suns, no gravitational pull, just blackness. Yet something had started to change. Unusual signals had been detected, not strong enough to be called messages, but not natural either. They came and went like echoes. Different species heard them in different ways. To the insectoid Varn, It felt like a vibration in their wings. To the machine minds of the Techerai, it appeared as a loop in their code. To the aquatic cress, it sounded like a deep, sad song beneath the water. But to the humans, those who had long vanished without a trace, it was a whisper they had left behind. A warning buried in silence. No one had seen humans in over 1,000 years. Their worlds were empty, their ships abandoned in orbit like forgotten memories. They had reached the peak of advancement, touched the edges of godhood, and then vanished without explanation. The galaxy moved on, pretending Earth never mattered, but deep down, every species felt uneasy about the mystery. Now, the signals from the void had brought that fear back. The Galactic Council, hesitant but curious, sent a team to investigate. It was a small, mixed-species crew on a fast reconnaissance ship called the Pioneer's Eye. Among them was a single human descendant, not from Earth, but from a colony that survived the disappearance Lieutenant Avon Cross, whose bloodline still carried the spark of old humanity. Avon was quiet, observant, and carried himself like someone raised on stories of a forgotten age. He didn't speak much during the journey, but as they entered the void, he changed. He began to hear things before the instruments did. He noticed patterns the computers missed. And worst of all, he recognized the signals. "It's not a message," he said one day while staring at a console flickering with static. "It's a memory." The others didn't understand. But Evan explained that human minds were trained differently long ago. They didn't just build machines, they built imprints, pieces of themselves hidden in waves, codes, and gravity shadows. What the galaxy was detecting weren't signals, they were traces. Remnants of a species that once walked as gods, now leaving footprints in the fabric of space. As Pioneer's Eye moved deeper into the void, the silence grew heavier. Stars disappeared behind them. Sensors began to fail, and the crew felt as if they were being watched. Not by eyes, but by something much older. The walls of the ship seemed to pulse with an invisible rhythm, like the beating of a heart from far away. Then they found it a massive object drifting in complete stillness. It wasn't a ship, nor a station. It looked like a fragment of space itself had been torn and folded into a shape. Its surface was blacker than black, and light bent away from it unnaturally. It had no doors, no signals, no engines. Yet Avon stepped forward and said, "They were here." He touched the surface, and suddenly, the crew saw things. Flashes of memories not their own. A city built in the heart of a star. A single human standing against an army of machines. A council of species kneeling before Earth's ambassador. Then, a final vision: human ships leaving known space, flying into the void, their hulls glowing with technology no one understood, and one message left behind: "We'll return when you're ready to remember us." The object wasn't a weapon or a base. It was a reminder. A piece of humanity's final journey, drifting like a message in a bottle. It had been there for centuries, hidden in the darkest corner of the universe, waiting for someone to find it. Not to reveal its secrets, but to test whether the galaxy could still understand what humanity had become. But something else happened. The moment they found the object, the void awakened. Across the black space, shapes began to stir. Not ships, not creatures, but traces. Glowing trails, invisible lines, echoes of moments trapped in space itself. The crew's memories began to blend with what they saw. Time twisted. Past and future overlapped. Avon collapsed, his mind overwhelmed, but before he blacked out, he saw Earth not as a planet, but as a legend burning bright at the center of everything. Humanity had not died. They had evolved beyond bodies, beyond time, leaving only traces markers across the void so they could find their way back. The crew barely escaped. The object didn't follow, but it remained there, pulsing gently. When they returned to the edge of the known galaxy, they found time had moved strangely. Months had passed in a few hours. Some systems had changed governments. A war had ended. But more importantly, other ships had also gone into the void. Spent his days writing in ancient human languages, drawing maps of places no one could verify. Scientists tried to understand his notes, but they made little sense until they realized he was drawing constellations that hadn't existed yet. Predictions. The future. Traces in the void weren't just about the past. They were guiding the next chapter. Earth wasn't lost. It was waiting. Not to conquer, not to rule, but to remind the galaxy of something it had forgotten: the power of belief, memory, and evolution. Humanity had become part of the universe itself, spreading across the void not as flesh, but as thought, as light, as legend. The Council tried to keep the discovery secret, but truth doesn't stay buried. Across the stars, old archives began to unlock themselves. Machines that hadn't spoken in centuries lit up with forgotten songs. Children were born with dreams they couldn't explain, and every now and then, a single word would appear on screens, carved into stone or whispered in the wind. Soon, the void wasn't empty anymore, and the traces were growing stronger, because the stars remembered. Out in the cold, endless expanse of the galaxy, where countless civilizations rose and fell like waves against the stars, the story of humanity had always been whispered with both awe and fear. They were not the oldest species, nor the strongest, nor the most technologically gifted when they first stepped into the stars, yet their name remained carved deeper in galactic memory than any empire before or after them. Long ago, the humans had been everywhere, colonizing planets, trading knowledge, joining councils, and standing shoulder to shoulder with alien powers who once considered Earthlings mere primitives. But then, without any clear reason, they vanished. Their colonies turned silent. Their great ships drifted empty in space. Even their homeworld, Earth, became a place of ghosts and overgrown cities. No war had ended them. No plague had consumed them. They had simply walked out of history, leaving behind confusion and fear. Rumors spread for generations. Some believed they had destroyed themselves. Others claimed they had found a higher plane of existence. But most thought the truth was darker, that humanity had discovered something too powerful, something they decided the galaxy wasn't ready for. Now, hundreds of years later, the mystery stirred once more. A scientific expedition from the Zarelian Republic, a cold, calculating species known for their logic, found an old satellite orbiting a forgotten planet. The satellite bore Earth's markings, an ancient human design, long believed to be extinct. It was dormant at first, but when powered, it began to transmit in an old human language. The message was simple: if you have come this far, you are close. But be careful, what we are is not what we were. Curiosity became fear as more such satellites were found across different sectors, all pointing to the same place, a system in the dead zone of space, once unreachable due to gravitational storms that only now had calmed. The Council of Galactic Powers voted against entering the system, but not everyone listened. A private team of explorers, led by the half-human captain Elara Rain, decided to investigate. She was born on a forgotten outpost, raised on stories of Earth's might, but had never seen any real trace of her ancestors' greatness. Her crew included a mix of exiles, truth-seekers, and those hungry for forbidden knowledge. Their ship, the Seeker's Flame, entered the silent system under the cover of darkness, with no backup and no permission. What they found defied everything the galaxy believed about human extinction. In the heart of that forgotten system floated a massive structure, not orbiting a planet, but anchored in space itself. It wasn't a station or a ship, it was something more. A living archive, humming with energy, its outer walls made from alloys unknown to any civilization, shifting color like a breathing organism. As the ship approached, the structure reacted, scanning them with invisible waves. No weapons, no threats, only observation. Elara stepped forward and spoke in the ancient human tongue she had learned as a child. To her shock, the archive responded, opening a pathway into itself and inviting them in. Inside, there was no control panel, no crew, only walls filled with light, floating symbols, and memories that played like hologram scenes of Earth's past, both beautiful and terrible. They saw human warriors fighting impossible odds, scientists breaking the rules of time, explorers walking alone into alien suns. But they also saw something else: humans leaving their bodies behind, merging with machines, energy, thought itself. They had not died. They had evolved. The archive revealed that humanity had discovered a hidden layer of reality, a field of consciousness beneath space and time. Every thought, every emotion, every life left a trace in this layer. Most species barely touched it. But humans, with their chaos, imagination, and will, could enter and shape it. They called it the echo. Through centuries of war, love, pain, and wonder, they had unknowingly trained themselves to reach it. And when the time came, they left their physical forms behind and became one with it, not as ghosts or data, but as something new. Pure will, pure idea, capable of bending reality in subtle ways. That was their true power. Not strength or speed or machines, but the ability to imagine beyond limits and make it real. That is why they left. Because the galaxy feared what they could become, and so they became more than the galaxy could ever understand. Alara's crew was overwhelmed. The archive wasn't a message, it was a test. To see who could understand the truth without breaking. Those who tried to take the knowledge by force were erased, not killed, but forgotten. But Alara, being human in part, was different. The archive recognized her, not as a threat, but as a bridge. It showed her one final vision, Earth, hidden beneath layers of false data, alive and shining, waiting for the day the galaxy would stop fearing and start believing. Alara returned with proof images, technology, and a part of the archive encoded into her mind. At first, no one believed her. But then things started to change. Ships began to malfunction, only to fix themselves moments later. Soldiers reported hearing voices warning them seconds before disaster. Children were born with dreams of places no one remembered. The echo had begun to respond, not as an attack, but as a whisper reminding the galaxy that humanity was still watching. Not to conquer, but to guide. The Council tried to hide the truth, but it spread faster than lies. Across the stars, forgotten machines woke up. Lost knowledge returned. And everywhere, one question began to rise. If this is what they became, what will we become? In the end, the true power of humanity wasn't in what they built or destroyed. It was in their ability to grow beyond fear, to walk into the unknown without a map, and to believe in impossible things until they became real. They had left the galaxy behind not in silence, but in trust. Trust that one day, others would follow not through war or domination, but through understanding. And now, with every dream, every thought that touched the echo, the stars began to change. Because the true power of humanity had never been in their weapons or worlds. It had always been in their will to become more. The message came from a region of space where no life should exist, a place wrapped in cosmic storms and black voids that swallowed signals like a bottomless sea, yet it reached every corner of the galaxy at once. One simple phrase in hundreds of alien languages: "This is your only warning." It was not transmitted through normal means. It echoed inside the minds of every living being capable of thought, a voice without a source, cold and ancient, and somehow human. Panic spread across the known systems, and the Council of Galactic Powers gathered in emergency session, trying to understand what this message meant, who sent it, and why it felt so familiar. Centuries had passed since humanity vanished, leaving behind only ruins, scattered technology, and unanswered questions. Theories ranged from divine ascension to extinction, but no one had ever truly known what happened to the humans. They had burned fast and bright across the stars, rising from a single world to challenge ancient empires, reshape science, and defy death itself. Then they were gone. No war. No disease. Just gone. Now this message had come, and many feared that it was from them, that humanity had returned not as friends, but as something else. The Council sent a team of explorers, scientists, and diplomats to the coordinates traced from the psychic wave, a point near the center of the void, a dead place known in old records as the Silence. The expedition was led by a seasoned negotiator named Vena Thal, a calm and logical being who had studied human history all her life, fascinated by their strange nature, so emotional, so chaotic, yet so powerful. Her ship, the Light of Accord, moved slowly through the darkness, surrounded by debris from ancient battles, forgotten probes, and twisted wreckage of ships that had once entered but never returned. As they reached the coordinates, they found something no one had expected: a structure floating. In the black, massive in scale, shaped like a fractured ring made of stone and metal, glowing faintly with energy that did not match any known signature. It was alive in a way, pulsing like a heartbeat, responding to their presence not with weapons, but with silence that pressed against their thoughts. Then the voice returned, this time clearer, deeper, and filled with meaning. You are not ready. We left so you could grow. We watched, and now we speak. The crew panicked, their minds flooded with visions, images of humans not as they were, but as beings made of light and thought, walking between stars, whispering to reality itself. The warning was not about an attack, but about a choice. The archive inside the structure revealed the truth. Humanity had evolved beyond physical form, not by technology alone, but by unlocking a deeper layer of the universe, a place where thought shaped matter, where will could bend time, where fear became reality if allowed. They had left because they knew the galaxy feared them, and fear in that hidden realm could create monsters. The humans chose exile to protect the younger species, giving them time to grow without interference. But now, something had changed. A force had entered the hidden layer, a parasite of thought, feeding on fear and hatred, growing stronger through war and division. It had awakened because the galaxy had started experimenting with forbidden technologies, trying to imitate what they did not understand. The warning was humanity's last attempt to stop it before it fully crossed into reality. Vena's team realized they were not facing a human threat. The structure was a gate, and through it, they could hear the whispers of something dark approaching, something that remembered every war, every cruelty, every nightmare species had ever created in their minds. It was a reflection of them all, and it was coming. The humans, now beings of the Echo Realm, could not stop it alone. They needed those still in physical form to resist it, to believe in something better, to stop feeding it with fear. That was the true message. The warning was a call to unite, to stop the wars, the hate, the greed that gave the monster shape. The team returned with all they had learned, but the council was divided. Some believed, others thought it was manipulation. But slowly, things began to change. Storms of madness struck planets. Ships disappeared into thin air. People dreamed of shadows, whispering promises and threats. And always, the same message echoed in their thoughts. We warned you. Vena tried to unite the powers, to spread the truth, and across the stars, a movement began. Those who understood the truth, who stopped feeding the fear, who believed in unity. The monster grew slower. The darkness shrank. The humans, watching from beyond, gave one last sign of hope, a sky filled with falling lights, ships of flame moving silently above the galaxy's core. Not attacking, not conquering, just watching. The warning had been real, and it had worked, but only just. The galaxy learned that the greatest threat was not the return of humanity, but the reflection of its own darkness. And in that reflection, they finally understood what made humans truly powerful, not their machines, not their strength, but their choice to face fear and choose something better. That was the warning. That was the hope. And it was not too late.